So this year's April Fool's Day came and went with a lot of my content creating pals having a field day. But not wanting to be left out, some game developers thought it'd be absolutely hilarious if they made fake game announcements. And I've gotta say, game developers are really cruel. Tales of Versus 2, baby! Just kidding! Ahahaha. So funny. Nobody wants that. Okay, what the heck? What, you think this is a joke, Bamco? Look at the roster. It's a traditional fighter. This is my dream spinoff, man. Why'd you have to do me like this? But then it got me thinking, wait, this is my dream spinoff. I should make a video about why this shouldn't be a joke, but a real thing. And furthermore, how I'd go about making it. After all, with a series centered around real-time combat, it only makes sense for its first spinoff in what seems like forever to be a traditional fighter. Actually, let's go ahead and start with that. I want this to be a traditional fighter. As you can tell by the title, this game would be the second Tales of Versus, with the first being, of course, Japan exclusive. Just assume at this point, no matter what topic I'm discussing in regards to this series, something about it will be Japan exclusive. I haven't been able to play it myself quite yet, but looking at footage, it seems interesting, and yeah, that's all I've got. I think for accessibility's sake, this would be the best approach, as we want this game to do well, maybe attract some newer fans to the series, and possibly see some sort of competitive meta. That being said, I'd love for most, if not all of the developing to be done by Arc System Works. The two companies could further their relationship after the success of Fighters, and I believe that the Tales series could do just that. With the series' emphasis on team synergy throughout all the games, I'd want this to primarily be a tag team fighting game with a good amount of mechanics revolving around teamwork. Of course, you should be able to choose if you want to stick with one-on-ones because more options never hurt anyone, and I'd even be down with taking those team battles up to 3-on-3s. I just tend to prefer fighting with multiple characters, and again, the series would lend itself well to that. I had an interesting idea to spice up this potential fighter's core gameplay, and that would be to have a similar system to Tales TP when using arts. You would have a base attack kit, but for your demon fangs, potential heals, magic guards, and eventually mystic arts, you take from your typical super meter, of course starting with none and building it up as the battle progresses. This would be shared for a team and different characters' arts, how much of it they'd use, and the risk reward from spending it on normal arts or saving it for something massive like your tiers of mystics would make for a lot of mind games and strategy. With this system in mind, the game has a similar feel to other Tales games, but lends itself to this genre a bit more, and with this we can have a variety of different character fighting styles. Mages could be the big spenders of TP, risking most of theirs for high damage, with the opposing side either playing it safe and magic guarding to reduce damage at the cost of their own TP, or they can try and dodge the attack to save some for an attack of their own. Furthermore, we can take a page from Graces and, to a lesser extent, future games afterwards, where perfectly timed dodges net you extra TP and an opening to attack. This is just a simple idea. I don't want to go into how it balanced out and all that, but I was really proud of it and felt like sharing. On top of this, there are plenty of techs we can take from the games of inspiration themselves, like jump cancels, critical guarding, manual canceling, so on and so forth. There's clearly a lot to work with, and I believe that even if we were to exclusively take mechanics from the games themselves, we'd have a great fighter on our hands. In the fake trailer, they used models from Tales of the Rays, given the trailer was based on that engine. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page, these models gotta go for the potential game. Hand-drawn HD 2D sprites are a borderline necessity and would make the game look absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you used to do it all the time in your 2D games you refuse to give anyone outside of Japan, and they still hold up, so this shouldn't be too big an issue, right? That or cel shade the hell out of the game so that we can't tell the difference. I could go either way. And be sure to not only port music from the games, but give us some hype remixes for battles. Some of the most iconic songs being reimagined to fit a high energy fight would be awesome, like a rearrangement of Fury Sparks, Meaning of Birth, or Fatalize. Some non-battle themes reimagined would be pretty great too, like certain town and dungeon themes. Bruh, can you imagine remixes for Zesteria's temple themes? Good god. We'd probably be getting remixes of the games represented by people in the roster though, so let's talk about that. This is one of the more exciting aspects to talk about, but also one of the most stressful. Looking at the joke trailer, the funniest part is the idea that we'd actually get a cast this big. There's no way, and I don't expect that in any capacity. But I mean, Bamco and Arxes, if you want to. First off, to be realistic, let's go with a reasonable number of characters to start off with. I'm sure there'd be DLC to add more, but at launch, I'd expect somewhere around 20 to 25 characters. We'll go with 25 because I can't bring myself to choose any less. It was really hard, but I took playstyles, popularity of the characters and games, and proper representation of said games into account, and here's what I've got. From Fantasia, we've got Cress and Mint, because they're the first protagonist and female lead from the series respectively, and are very much associated with not just the game, but the series. Cress would be your vanilla sword fighter, your all-around character to ease people into combat. Mint would take some white mage elements, maybe having some interesting mechanics where she can heal a bit of herself or partner characters. From Destiny, I'd pick the protagonist protagonist Ston, and one of the most popular characters in the series, Leon, both of whom I'd like to primarily be dragoons or aerial fighters. I say this because in their game's director's cut, you know, the one we didn't get, that combat system had a bigger focus on aerial combat, so I'd like their fighting game representation to reflect that. From Symphonia, I'd put in Lloyd as a very combo-heavy fighter, Colette would be an interesting zoner, and Zelos could incorporate his moveset from the game, combining typical swordsmanship with a handful of spells. He's also one of the more popular characters in the series, at least from the company's perspective, since he's always running stuff at the Tales of festivals. So this seems like a guarantee. Which is fine by me, come on home, my son! I think that Vague and Eugene from Rebirth deserve a spot on the roster as well. Despite this game being Japan exclusive, it's one of the most requested entries to receive a localization and a popular game in its own right. Vague could provide some interesting twists to yet another sword fighter with his ice element, and Eugene would not only be the first non-human character, but a spear wielder, another first on the roster. Legendia is a weird one. It's not the most popular entry by a lot, but has a very dedicated and vocal fan base. I think one character from that game sounds about right for starters, and its protagonist, Senel, would be a nice fit. He fights with his bare freaking hands for starters, and could also act as a grappler since a lot of his moveset from his game of origin centers around just that. From Abyss, Luke and Tyr would be a good choice. Luke could be a bit on the heavier side given all his big ass swings in Abyss, and Tyr could be another character in the same vein as Mint, just with some dark magic instead to mix things up and have a different moveset. From Vesperia, Yuri could be another combo heavy character given how Vesperia's battle system was designed. Estelle would be a tanky white mage with more focus on her swordsmanship and less so on the magic, and Patty could be this game's big RNG character. Also, she was one of the bigger selling points to Definitive Edition, which was pretty recent and a big deal for the series. From Graces, Asbel can introduce some interesting style shift mechanics, jumping from attacking with his sword in the sheath like his A arts, and using the sword properly like his B arts, which would be his attacks that use TP. Sylphie would be another clear choice, being that 90% of the story was about her. She's got a lot of flashy moves due to reasons, so even as another fist fighter, she'd stick out. And because I think this game's another one of the more popular ones like Symphonia and Vesperia, I guess Sharia can join the party or whatever. She's a very mechanically interesting healer due to her throwing knives, white magic, and healing, so she'd be way too cool a character gameplay wise to not have. The Exilia games gave me a really hard time because I had wondered whether I should stick with 2 characters per part of the duology or bunch them up together. I decided on the latter because I don't think it would be fair if Exilia got 4 characters due to it having a sequel. By that logic, Destiny and Symphonia would also get a whole lot of representation, and that's better saved for DLC. That being said, I think Ludger would be way too interesting to leave him out, what with his 3 switchable weapons, so I'd like for him to join in alongside Jude and Mila. Jude as our final fist fighter, as well as having healer elements and a fun snap pivot gimmick we could incorporate. Somehow. Mila's spirit shifting would be her main form of gameplay on top of her swordsmanship, and I like to incorporate her ability to summon the Great Four into combat. I can see her being a very technical yet rewarding character. That just leaves the newer entries. From Zestiria, you'd have the boys, Saray and Mikleo. Saray could have elements of his different armatizations for attacks, and he'd be a tanky boy, hitting hard and being able to take some heat on his own. Mikleo would be a staff wielder, something we don't have representation for yet. Not to mention, much like Vague, he's a character centered around one element, so that'd be cool to see. Also, we need some water representation in this game because hydration is important. Drink water, fam. Drink water. Lastly, from Berseria, Velvet's an obvious choice because she's the protagonist and I can see her acting like Ragna from Blaze Blue. Glass cannon, but one who rewards combos and damage onto the foe by regenerating her own health. That one kinda wrote itself, I can't take too much credit there. But Fee would be my other choice, and for him I imagine someone who does a lot of chip damage and builds up TP to dish out the higher tier spells dealing damage the most that way. So, wow, that was a lot. I had to cut out a lot of characters in the series' massive catalog, with some games getting 0 representation at the start. I believe the games I selected are at least among the most popular, and I gave what I feel to be the most popular out of the selected group more characters. I have my reasons for excluding certain entries, whether I feel they're a bit more niche or, you know, just weren't released outside of Japan, so, With this in mind, the game would 100% benefit from DLC. Packs of the different games parties for $5 to $6 would be too cool, and if we were to get to the point where we have all the series playable characters, then we could discuss more obscure picks. The Chimeriad, God Generals, Hunting Blades, Allison Dex, and even weirder choices like Ifree, the Bantam Bouncer, Cedric. I could go on and on. The possibilities for this game are incredible, and the more I talk about something like this or get more ideas, the more I want it and the sadder I get that it's probably never gonna happen. You know what? I'm gonna stop, not only because of what I just said, but when it comes to the modes and side features, that's a whole other can of worms. Fill in the blanks, Bamco. Heck, these are all ideas I'm giving for free. Just imagine how much more you get if you paid me. Or confided in me on this potentially secret project you want to do because it's too good an idea. Bamco, please, just do it! Tales of Versus 2 is a pipe dream and a joke. A sick, Sick joke. But it can be a reality. Such a great reality. And I hope this video at least sparks some interest and gets a conversation going. Let me know who you'd like to see on the roster and some potential ideas for how the game would play, so at least while we cry over this great idea never coming to fruition, we can have a little fun. God, I hate April Fool's Day.